I'm Dr. Eliza Monroe, a pediatric surgeon. When the ambulance doors opened that night, I didn't expect to see my husband, and my best friend, and my daughter, all unconscious. It's strange how a moment like that, just a few seconds long, can carve itself into your memory with such brutal precision. The flashing red lights, the rush of feet, the smell of antiseptic and smoke. And then the world just sort of stopped. My brain couldn't catch up to what my eyes were seeing. But before that night, before everything broke apart, I was just getting off another long shift at the hospital. It had been one of those days where you don't sit down for 10 hours, where you eat a granola bar and 2 bites between surgeries and call that lunch. I remember walking out of the building with that exhausted relief only a hospital worker understands, the kind that sinks into your bones but still makes you feel proud. I was looking forward to getting home, kicking off my shoes, and collapsing on the couch next to Lila and Adam. Lila's 11, and still somehow thinks I'm cool. I don't know how long that'll last, so I try to savor it. We'd been planning a movie night, just the 3 of us. Adam said he'd pick up dinner. I remember smiling at that, grateful for the small effort, but something felt a little off. Adam's texts had been strange all day, polite, almost like I was a guest, not his wife. Got dinner covered. Hope your shift's going okay. No little joke, no emoji, just distant. That wasn't like him, but I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe he was just tired. Maybe I was just reading into things because I was tired. And then there was Tessa. She'd been staying with us for a few weeks. Her divorce had been messy, complicated in that quiet, painful way people don't talk about. She was my best friend. We'd known each other since the 3rd grade, passed notes in class, cried over crushes, gone through college together. She was family. So when she said she needed a place to land, I didn't hesitate. Of course she could stay with us, for as long as she needed. At first it actually felt nice, like having a sister around again. She helped with dinner, she joked with Lila, and she kept me company on the nights I got home too drained to talk to anyone else. But slowly I started to notice things. Not anything glaring, just little shifts that I kept brushing off. Like how Lila had started retreating to her room more. She wasn't finishing her homework, which wasn't like her. And when I'd ask how her day was, she'd give me one-word answers, head down. I asked Adam about it once, and he said she was probably just hitting that preteen phase, hormones and moods and all that. He didn't seem worried, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was under the surface. One night, I came home late from a particularly rough emergency case. Lila was still up, even though it was close to midnight. She was curled up in a blanket on the couch, her eyes tired but open. I sat down next to her, pulled her close, and said, "You okay, baby?" She didn't answer right away, just leaned against me. And then, in the quietest voice, she whispered, "I don't like when you're not home." That sentence hit harder than I expected. It stuck with me. I told myself it was just her way of saying she missed me. Maybe I was working too much. But something in her tone, there was fear in it, not just sadness. Still, I didn't ask more. I should have. I thought I was holding everything together, juggling surgeries and home life, being a good mom, a good wife, a good friend. But sometimes, you can be too deep in it to see what's right in front of you. And the truth is, she was in my house, every day, and I never saw it coming. At first, I told myself I was just tired, that maybe I was reading too much into things because I was stretched too thin, between surgeries and parenting and trying to keep some semblance of a marriage intact. But the truth is, I'd already started noticing the cracks. I just didn't want to admit they were there. Adam started working late. A lot. He said he'd picked up extra freelance projects, tight deadlines, demanding clients. But the timing always seemed a little too perfect. Right after dinner, right after Lila had gone to bed, he'd grab his keys, mumble something about needing quiet to concentrate and be gone for hours. I wanted to believe him. I really did. And Tessa, she had this glow about her lately. At first, I was happy for her. After everything she'd been through with the divorce, it made sense she might be finding her confidence again. But then I noticed the new clothes. Little things. Expensive. Subtle. Her makeup was always done. She smiled at her phone a lot. Always texting, then tucking it away quickly if I walked by. Again, none of it was proof. But it added up in the worst kind of way. Lila, meanwhile, had started drawing these strange pictures. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Kids draw weird things sometimes. But these weren't just scribbles. They were unsettling. Houses with broken windows. People with X's over their faces. One had a woman standing alone while two others stood together, holding hands behind her back. I stared at that one for a long time. I didn't ask her about it, though. I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. I felt like I was starting to unravel, quietly. I'd stare at the ceiling at night, wondering if I was being paranoid. If maybe this was just what happened when you let stress and exhaustion pile up too high. I didn't want to be the jealous wife. I didn't want to accuse my best friend of something unforgivable without real proof, so I said nothing. And then one day, a nurse at work, Sarah, someone I trust, mentioned offhand that she'd run into Adam and Tessa at an art gallery over the weekend. They looked cute, like they were on a date or something, she laughed. I froze. I hadn't been there. I hadn't even known they were out. I smiled and nodded like it didn't mean anything, but inside, it felt like the air had been knocked out of me. That night, I tried to act normal. I set the table, called everyone for dinner. Adam didn't answer right away. Said he was finishing up a call. Tessa came down smiling, like it was just another evening. But Lila didn't come down at all. I went upstairs and found her curled, up on her bed, clutching her stuffed turtle, cheeks streaked with tears. She didn't look at me when I sat next to her, just kept her face buried in the pillow. I rubbed her back and asked what was wrong, and then she whispered it. I saw Daddy hugging Aunt Tessa. He said it's grown-up stuff and not to tell you. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, frozen. I could feel the weight of it pressing on my chest. My first instinct was to go downstairs and scream. To confront them, to demand the truth right then and there. But I didn't. I don't even fully know why. Maybe because some part of me still didn't want it to be true. Maybe because I was afraid of what I'd see in their faces. So instead, I tucked Lila in, kissed her forehead, and told her everything would be okay, even though I had no idea if that was true. And then I waited. I started watching more closely, listening, quietly collecting the pieces I didn't want to see. Because if I was right, if what I feared was really happening right under my nose, then I needed to be absolutely sure it was a Wednesday night. Adam was in the shower, and I was sitting on the edge of the bed, just staring at his phone on the nightstand. I hadn't planned to look. Honestly, I didn't even realize I'd picked it up until it was already in my hands. My heart was pounding. It felt wrong, invasive. But something in me, something quiet and desperate, pushed past the guilt. I opened his messages, and there they were. Texts between him and Tessa. Dozens of them. Some were harmless. But then I saw it. Lila's starting to notice. We'll talk to Eliza soon. She deserves honesty. My hands started shaking. I read those words over and over, hoping they'd rearrange into something else. Anything else. I wanted it to be a misunderstanding, a joke, but it wasn't. It was what I had feared for weeks. He knew. She knew. They'd been talking about me like I was the problem to solve, like my daughter noticing their betrayal was just an obstacle to manage. Put the phone down before he got out of the shower. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't get a full breath in. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. That night, when Tessa said she was going to meet a friend for drinks, I smiled and nodded, told her to have fun. Then I followed her. I stayed a few cars back, barely breathing the whole drive. She parked near a little cafe on the edge of town, the kind of quiet place people go when they don't want to be seen. And just like that, Adam walked in from the other side of the street. They didn't see me. I stayed in the car. He kissed her cheek. She touched his arm. They sat close, like they belonged to each other. And I just watched. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't storm in or cause a scene. I just sat there, letting the truth settle into my bones like cold water. Later that night, after they both came home, separately, I acted like nothing had happened. I needed time, not for them, for me. I needed to be ready. So I started writing. Everything. What I'd seen, what I knew, what I was feeling. I poured it all out, like I was trying to make sense of my own life by getting it down on paper. I needed to see the shape of it. I needed to feel like I still had some control. But while I was quietly falling apart, Lila was unraveling faster. Her drawings got darker. Faces with no eyes, words scrawled in red crayon. One day her teacher pulled me aside after school and handed me her notebook. On the inside cover, Lila had written, "I want to disappear." That broke me. I sat in my car after that and just sobbed, because no matter how hurt I was, she was the one paying the price. She was just a kid, and somehow she'd ended up in the middle of all this, watching her world crack open, feeling unsafe in the one place that was supposed to protect her. That night, I decided, I would confront them both the next evening, after my shift. I'd ask my mom to take Lila for the night. I needed to say everything, face to face. No more pretending. No more waiting. But I never got the chance. Because the next day, just as I was wrapping up my last case, my phone rang. It was the police. There had been a car accident. 3 people. 1 adult male, 1 adult female, and a young girl, Adam, Tessa, Lila, all unconscious. And just like that, everything I thought I was preparing for vanished. The ER doors slammed open, and for a second, I forgot how to breathe. The world around me blurred, nurses moving fast, voices calling out numbers, that sharp, metallic hospital smell I'd gotten so used to somehow turning foreign. I'd been in that trauma bay hundreds of times. But that night, it wasn't patients I didn't know. It was my family. 3 beds, 3 lives. Lila, Adam, Tessa. All unconscious. I remember standing there frozen, my badge still clipped to my scrubs, hands trembling at my sides. One of the trauma nurses, Danielle, someone I'd worked with for years, touched my shoulder gently and said, "Come with me." Her voice was soft, like she knew if it got too loud, I'd shatter. They'd been pulled from a wreck just outside the city, no other cars involved, just a sharp veer off the road and into a ravine. The paramedic said there had been yelling before the crash. Lila had started screaming in the back seat. Then, silence. Then impact. I don't remember sitting down, but suddenly I was in a chair outside the trauma room, my head in my hands. Someone brought me water. Someone else tried to talk to me. But it all sounded so far away, like I was underwater. The only thing I could hear, really hear, was the monitor beeping from behind the curtain. And then came the worst part. One of the detectives approached me. He was holding Tessa's phone, still on, still open. He looked hesitant, but then handed it over. There was a message on the screen. The last one she'd typed before the crash. "I'll tell Eliza. Lila doesn't deserve this." I stared at those words until the screen dimmed. My fingers tightened around the phone like I could somehow squeeze more meaning out of them. They were going to tell me. Finally. It wasn't just a plan. It was real. Tessa had made a choice. And Lila had known. She must have overheard. Or maybe Adam said something in the car. Maybe they thought she wouldn't understand. But kids are always listening. Always. And something in her must have snapped. I went into her room that night. My little girl, pale and still, hooked up to machines I'd used on other people's children so many times. But this time it was my own. I pulled up the chair and sat beside her, my hands shaking as I brushed her hair away from her forehead. Her skin was warm, but her eyes wouldn't open. I held her hand, small and limp in mine, and I whispered, "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." And then the words just came out. She was just a child. And we failed her. I didn't mean for it to come out loud, but it did, and the truth of it gutted me. While we were tangled up in secrets and silence and selfishness, she was carrying the weight of it, trying to make sense of something too big for her heart. And instead of protecting her, we let it crush her. I stayed, there holding her hand, praying for something, anything to change. Because in that moment, I would have given everything I had to take it all back. Every missed sign, every ignored instinct, every quiet moment when she was trying to tell me she wasn't okay. And all I could think was, please, just come back. They woke up 2 days later, first Adam, then Tessa. I knew the moment was coming, but it didn't make it easier. I visited Adam's room first. He looked small in that hospital bed, hooked up to machines he didn't understand, surrounded by the world I knew better than anything. When he saw me walk in, his eyes filled with something between guilt and panic. "Eliza," he said, his voice cracked and shaky. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I stood there, arms folded, calm, too calm. He kept talking, apologizing, rambling about how things had gotten confusing, how he'd been lonely, how it never felt like this would be the outcome. He said he loved Lila, that he still loved me, that he never meant to hurt anyone. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just looked at him and said, "My daughter is in a coma because you couldn't control yourself." He flinched like I'd slapped him, but I didn't stop. I told him I'd already called a lawyer. I was filing for divorce. He would get visitation, maybe, if Lila ever wanted to see him again. I could see the words landing, one by one. I think some part of him expected me to yell, to fall apart, but I wasn't there to give him that kind of grace. Next was Tessa. She was sitting up when I came in, eyes already red, a box of tissues on the tray beside her. She burst into tears the second she saw me, said she was sorry, said she hated herself, said she didn't know how it got that far. "It just happened," she whispered. "I was lonely." He was too. I nodded, let her speak. And then I told her, just as calmly, "You were supposed to be my sister. My daughter trusted you, and you destroyed that for what? Comfort? Distraction? You don't just stumble into betrayal. You walk toward it." She didn't say anything after that, just sat there, crying. I walked out of her room without another word. You'd think, after something like that, all the love would disappear, that it would burn up in the fire of betrayal and never return. But it doesn't work that way. Love doesn't just vanish, it clings, even when it's bruised and twisted and bitter. And that's what hurt the most. Because somewhere, underneath the anger and disgust, was grief. For what we used to be. For the family we almost had. For the woman I thought Tessa was. For the man I believed Adam could still be. But that version of our life was gone now, and the only thing that mattered was Lila, protecting her, fighting for her, being the mother she needed, one who saw things clearly, who acted, who didn't make excuses for the people who had let her down, because no apology, no explanation, will ever undo what they did, and I won't let them break. Her again. I must have dozed off in the chair. My head was resting on the edge of the bed, one hand still wrapped around hers, like if I let go for even a second, she might slip away again. Then I felt it, a tiny movement, fingers twitching beneath mine. I opened my eyes, heart racing, not daring to hope. And then I heard it. "Mom?" Her voice was quiet, hoarse, but it was hers. I looked up and there she was, eyes half open, confused and scared and trying so hard to be brave. I leaned in, held her face in my hands and whispered, "You're safe now. I'm here." She didn't say anything after that, just started crying, and I did too, because in that moment, all that mattered was that she was awake, alive, still with me. A year later, we're not the same people we were, but we're okay. Lila's in therapy now. She goes twice a week, and she started to talk about things she used to keep bottled up. She's at a new school, made a few good friends, and she's back to painting again. Real things, bright colors. There's laughter in the house again. Not all the time, but enough. We live in a smaller place now. Cozy. Just the two of us. I cut back at the hospital, gave up the night shifts, started teaching part-time instead. I still miss the OR, but I don't miss coming home to a house full of silence and tension. Now I come home to her, to warmth. Adam sends letters sometimes. He never shows up, never calls. Just envelopes with his handwriting on the front, tucked into our mailbox once or twice a month. I let Lila choose what to do with them. Some she opens. Some she tears up without reading. I don't ask questions. That's her healing to own. Tessa sent one letter too. Just one. Then she asked to meet. I agreed. We sat at a little cafe, the kind where you don't really talk loud. She apologized. She said she still thought about what she did every day. I listened. I nodded. I told her I forgave her, but that didn't mean we were friends again. Some things once broken don't go back the way they were. It wasn't anger I felt, just distance and peace. Because here's the thing I've learned. Some betrayals don't end in hate. They end in boundaries, in self-respect, in new beginnings. We're still a family, just not the same one we used to be. And maybe that's okay. Have you ever faced a betrayal that changed your life forever? Let me know in the comments. You're not alone. If this story spoke to you, or if you've ever had to rebuild after everything fell apart, subscribe for more real, raw stories like this one. We're building a space for honesty, healing, and connection. You don't have to go through it alone. Hit that subscribe button, and let's keep walking through it together.